I remember thinking the words, "One day everybody will know my name." And I didn't know why I was saying that because I didn't even know what that meant.
Hello, we are back Owner Mode Summit. I'm super excited to have a living legend. We talked a little bit before. We're recording now around just how big she thinks, right, and how it's inspiring to watch her moves. Is literally kind of a limitless approach. The introduction is a prolific investor, an author, a builder. She's been associated with many brands and platforms that span from tech to consumer and experiential and everything in between. We have Miss Arlan Hamilton with us. Thank you, Arlan, for.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
So today, the theme for today, of course, is our create pathway. And the idea behind this is taking what you know, your knowledge, your expertise, and essentially packaging that into value that you can either monetize or create value for other people. But the essence of it is not being dependent on others, right, to create your opportunities. And I would say, Arlen, you're the poster child of that in a lot of ways. But let's kind of start from the beginning. I would love to hear, your story and maybe tell it from the angle of what led you to what I think is a big differentiator in how you think about the world, which is how you approach risk, kind of demanding a place in rooms, not really shying away from what a lot of people get intimidated by.
Yeah. So I remember when I was like 5 or 4, I was walking outside of my daycare and I was getting on a bus, like a shuttle. And I remember thinking the words, "One day everybody will know my name." And I didn't know why I was saying that because I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know what everybody was or who the world was. I just thought this world is a big world, and it wasn't about being famous at all. I've never wanted that, but it's about like getting your message out to as many people as possible. And I think that was very ingrained in me at the beginning, or just like native. And I have just been stirring things up since I was very little. Like I would speak up for certain students. I was also like, the tallest girl in my class for years and kind of have this imposing figure a little bit. And, for better and for worse, there's a lot to that. But I think, when my mother named me after her ex-boyfriend, when my dad was late to my birth, I come from like a royal line of petty, right? Like I come from a royal line uh, of just off the beaten path. And people have been treating me like a guy for most of my life because of my name, and if they don't know me, right? And so it's been really interesting seeing, as a Black gay woman, how other people are treated before
Mm,
you know me. And I just don't think there's any room that you or I should not be allowed to be in, within reason, obviously, right? Like privacy and all that, but I don't think there's any public space that you and I should be like, "Oh, are we allowed to be in here?" They're rich in here or they're fancy in here. It's all equal to me. So I've always just had that feeling. It's more logical to me than I think a lot of people realize. I think it comes across as like super confident, super brash, but it's just logical to me. Like we are all equal at birth, and I have no evidence to the counter of that.
God, love it. And so, as we kind of go through your career trajectory, and I think folks know that you had some trying times as you've kind of navigated to the point where you are today. But it's funny, we talk about this story as a youngster. You kind of had like an influencer mindset before that was really a thing, which is I want to make my voice heard, right? And
Mhm.
then social media enters the chat, right? And folks
Mhm.
like myself, I stayed away from social media. I was like, I don't want my business out there. I feel like my resume should speak for itself. Clear as day to me now that the new resume is your social
Oh
media
yeah.
presence.
Oh
But
yeah.
you understood that way before. And I would argue, in a 0.01% in terms of really leveraging the full strength of that. Can you walk us through your career trajectory and how the intersection of where you were and this platform that you can build through social media helping create opportunities for you in the
Mhm.
earlier stages?
Yeah, there's so much to that. I mean, I've had multiple careers and lives, but I would say that what I have found really fascinating, and I haven't had a lot of time, like, chance to talk about it recently. What I found fascinating is that in 2015, when I was making my mark on Silicon Valley venture capital startup world, and nobody knew me. I was just starting. Had been homeless up until that September. One thing that I did was write a blog post, and that kind of went semi-viral to me, right? Thousands of people saw it. And when I wrote the blog post, I got a lot of attention. When I started tweeting about raising a fund, about not advertising, but just about the journey, when I started tweeting about these black and brown founders who and these women who were doing so much and nobody was investing in them. When I was getting into Twitter wars with like billionaires and millionaires, people who cared about me would write me and DM me and they would say you're doing too much, you're too out there. That's not how this works. You can't do that as a venture capitalist. And I never listened to them. And I just built my personal brand and my brand around Backstage Capital the way I saw fit. And what I think is so fascinating today is that the biggest funds in the world, like Andreessen Horowitz, et cetera, that's all they're doing
Mhm.
is when those same people were reaching out to tell me to be quiet, they're now doing this as like their model. And I just saw it just again, it comes back to logic. I just saw the more people who know about what I'm doing, the more opportunity that I will have for myself and for these investments I'm making. For the founders in the hundreds that we're looking at the time, we don't have any real money. We don't have any real connections. And I say we, couple of people, right? So what are we going to do? We have to have some sort of leverage, and that needs to be attention and
Mm.
awareness. And to me, it just made all the sense in the world. Now, tying it back, you wanted to go even further back. The last thing I did before launching my fund was I was on the road with different musicians. So that had been a lifelong dream of mine to be a tour manager, production coordinator, etc. So I had been on the road with Tony Braxton, with Jason Derulo, with a couple other people, international names, and I worked my way up over, maybe 2 decades almost. And I saw what they were doing, which is they got attention first, and then they use that attention to bring in opportunity, and then they got into some of these tech deals. And at the end of the day, behind the scenes, the Ashton Kutchers of the world, the Troy Carters of the world, the chameleonaires of the world, what they were doing was using their fame to get into rooms that most people couldn't get into to make these $50,000 investments. So I said, well, I'm not famous, but I can make myself known by a certain group of people. And my thesis or my plan was I want to be the first call that any woman in America or any black person in America, that's kind of the straight up calls, the first call they make if they're starting a company. That's kind of where it started 2013, 2012, and it certainly turned into that. I didn't know and how it would turn.
It's funny because, so I went to HBS for business school, and one of
Yeah,
one of my good friends, was a founder for a food delivery company when these were, like, all the rage.
yeah.
I get a call. I'm in Silicon Valley, I'm at Google. I get a call from him asking me if I could make an introduction to you from his wife, who also went to HBS, because she was launching a concept and she literally was going around saying, "Who can introduce me to Arlan?" And that obviously speaks to exactly what you just said, which is you want to be what people think of. So let me take a step back. It's going to be kind of a tough question for you to answer, but I'm curious how you would answer it, which is you did something really impressive was you were able to raise millions of dollars based on essentially a platform that you were able to create using social media to put a message out there, position yourself as a conduit, right? The connection between founders and capital, right? How much of that would you say if you had to break it up into the message itself, your boldness and will in being the messenger of that message and the timing of when you delivered that message? Between those three areas, how would you kind of split it up percentage wise as far as how that all kind of came together?
I think, um, is driven by my drive, like, it was driven by the fact that I just didn't give up no matter what the timing was. Because you say the timing, it was all kinds of times.
Mm.
It was timing where I was literally told to not say the words "Black founders" by a millionaire investor, I should say Jason Calacanis. Jason
Mm.
Calacanis told me, "Do not say the word black, do not say women, we don't do that here." Okay? And this is many lives ago, before became friends and then we weren't again. And so the timing was always different. It was either people were not checking for it or everybody was scrambling to find the Black person who had already established themselves in this lane because they needed to have some sort of plug because, oh, now the world is watching, you know? So it was all kinds of that. And then I think what the through line was the drive. Like, I kept going no matter what, good and bad times. I didn't let either one tell me what it was because I knew it was all fleeting. But the biggest part of it was that the founders themselves existed. The founders themselves were the receipts. They were the proof. And I'm not trying to be like Columbus, I discovered them. They were already there. I'm just trying to point at them. Y'all look, they're here. We're here. And so I think it had everything to do with the caliber of the talent and my ability to spotlight them.
Mm. So along your journey, and then we're going to kind of get into this idea of how you thought about opportunity once you had kind of mobilized and built a foundation of your brand and how you thought about that brand and the future of that brand. But before we go there, as I hear stories you talk about, you come across a lot of interesting people along the way. And in some cases, I would imagine it's polarized interactions, big support, in some cases, some hate coming your way,
Oh yeah.
but you've been in the conversation and you've been able to have kind of interactions with folks. And I would argue that's a form of being in the room. You're able to connect, make your own assessment based on your own interaction of what they're about and maybe the opportunity to collaborate. But what is your observation from kind of having had these interactions with the Mark Cubans of the world, the Sam Altmans of the world, these folks who are really moving and grooving, and your early experience with them, like kind of what's your kind of perspective on that for the audience who are maybe struggling with just getting their message out enough to get in these rooms to begin with? What would reinforce or maybe be a misconception that you've seen based on your experience interacting with these folks?
Yeah, so you're talking about like Mark Cuban. He invested $6 million into Backstage Capital. Essentially, it's a joint venture with the two of us. So I own 30% of it. He owns 70%. He put all the funding into it. That was his decision to do that split, which is unheard of. And I then share my carry with our investors by like voluntarily. And so Mark and I have met a few times. I've interviewed him twice on stages and see him all the time. And I would say I'll tell you this, even with all that, I'll tell you like it is. Like I have no reason to sugarcoat anything, right? Because of I think before the call you called me a free agent. That's what it is. So Mark, in my opinion, here's a couple things. He's very direct. He may be wrong a lot. Like I tell him he's wrong a lot, but he's direct and he knows what he wants and he knows what he's going to say. Like, he's to the point. And I think you have to be when you get as many requests as he does, because I get asked a lot and I think he's the only person I know that gets asked more for stuff. So that directness is there. I also think that he's incredibly intelligent. Like, he comes across as like a jock type or like I don't know, whatever, frat boy type, but he is incredibly intelligent. And I've seen him do what I do, which is you're in a room with 20 different entrepreneurs and you could talk about each of their companies and each of their industries, at the drop of a dime and help them in some major way. I've seen him do that in person with no cameras and just really care. And I think that I don't think he's like someone that deserves a parade. I don't deserve a parade for like spotlighting what the talent that's already there. I think he's a very wealthy man who's incredibly intelligent, savvy, and he realizes, like he said to me, I said, "Why did you invest when you don't like to invest in other people's funds for the most part?" He said, "You're in rooms I'll never be in." So he's he realizes, just like with his basketball team, black people made make me. So I'm not gonna leave them behind. I'm not gonna be a fool. And that's the kind of what I've observed about him. I think he's incredibly fair. He's he is he can change his mind with evidence. So we've had a lot of those discussions where I'll bring something to him, and he was like, "Nah, I don't like it." And I'll say, "No, this is why." And then sometimes he'll just invest in stuff beyond the 6 million just because I say that he should. And he said, "Okay, I trust you. You said it. I'll do it for you."
Mm,
Um, and then sometimes, we get into heated arguments. And it just happens that's what you do. When you have two people who are very sure of themselves, but care, you're gonna have a little bit of butting of the heads. And that I think he would find everything I just said very fair. Sam Altman, I've known Sam Altman. So I've known Mark since 2018, 2019. I've known Sam Altman since 2014. When before I had the fund and while I was homeless is when
mm,
I first got in contact with him. And he was at the time, he was at Y Combinator. I think he was already leading Y Combinator when I met him. And this is something that very few people know. I can't for the life of me remember if I put it in either of my books, but very few people have ever talked to me about this, and that is that he was attempting to make Backstage Capital before it was even in existence, the first fund to go through Y Combinator.
mm.
He took that to his board or team or whatever, and they had just in that year started taking on nonprofits as, like, this whole, like, shaking things up, and ACLU and all that, and, hadn't started yet, but you know what I mean. That eventually happened. And he took it to them and they said, "No." They said, "It doesn't work for our business model."
Mm,
And, so that was kind of the kickoff was he connected me to his lawyer so that I could have a really fancy lawyer without any money. He didn't know I was homeless, so I didn't tell people back then. But I had a lawyer who was, like, the best. So when I got investments, I could make some moves.
nice.
And then he took me to Y Combinator. So I found that to be great. And then I saw him rise in the ranks. And then, of course, he launched OpenAI and ChatGPT, Backstage Capital. Because of that relationship, I sent him a message and I said, "I want Backstage to be like a direct investor in OpenAI. You need that. You need that on your cap table, even though it's a drop in the bucket of what you've raised." And we made an investment within weeks.
Mm,
So Backstage Capital is an investor in OpenAI, and we are I think we're the only Black-led investor on that cap table. I could be wrong though, because I don't know assumptions by names, but I think we are because it hasn't been disproven when I say it out loud to him.
virtual round of applause for that, because I think when we talk about, one thing I mentioned to Arlen coming into the call was, there's a lot of doors to be opened. In a lot of ways, you're kind of busting the door open, right? For lack of a better word, whether that was
Yeah.
Backstage Capital, the OpenAI investment. And I just want to just comment on some things I heard, which are more subtle through lines, but I think are important for the audience to hear. So, one, have a message, have a perspective, right? And so understand what you stand for. Once you do that, feel comfortable standing on it and being open about it, because it sounds like a lot of people will try to coerce you to be quiet, be less brash about it. But at the end of the day, the benefits, it seems, outweigh the cons as far as the people that are for you are going to open up opportunities. And so then you're getting invited into rooms because you have this perspective that other folks aren't sharing with them. And the smart folks will say, I can learn something from this perspective, bring this person into the room and share. And then that creates relationships and that creates opportunity. So I just want to kind of highlight some of the nuggets I'm hearing in terms of how to navigate and how to think through being yourself authentically, but also creating opportunity from a long-term perspective. It's not transactional, but meeting people in 2014, being consistent about what you stand for, that not changing, and opening opportunities later. So from your branding perspective, I think you built a voice on social media that translated into a fund you were able to raise, which was pretty groundbreaking at the time. How did you think about your brand? How did you think about that past Backstage Capital as a platform to build other brands? Like, how would you propose people think through personal branding, the value of personal branding, the flexibility it allows you? What has to stay consistent, even if other things are changing that you're building on that platform?
A lot of questions. What I will say, uh be willing to, well, first share your voice, like share. And so many people are, I don't want to put myself out there, like you said earlier, but what's the alternative? You're going to work for somebody else the rest of your life, or you're going to hate your job the rest of your life, or you're not going to have any options. Some people love their jobs, but don't you want to have more options? So I think it's like you have to weigh the two options. And I think you said what should stay the same. My willingness to fail in public is like, it's off the charts. My willingness to get L's in public is just like infinite. And that's why I think people ride with me for so long. Like, I have people who still to this day, like, I'm about to get on a plane to New York, and I'm going to have at least somebody come up to me on that plane or in that airport and say, "I saw you in 2013 out of this or 2017 out of this." It's that, and I think it gives other people permission to do that. When it comes to, like, the personal brand, it's like authenticity. I know that's like kind of, a plain word, but it's true. Like, whatever your thing may not be super confident, super kicking in doors, super willingness to fail. It may be something else. It may be I'm a timid person, or I'm a very, like, pragmatic, logical person, and I don't like to take risks. But whatever it is, be authentic in it so that when you win, the right person is winning. 'Cause you don't wanna keep the mask on. I mean, it's exhausting. So for me, personal brand, it came from I like certain words because my name is Arlan, and I never really met another Arlan until I was in my, like, late 20s or whatever, and they were all dudes. Um, or dead doctors, white doctors for some reason. There's a lot of dead white doctors named Arlen that spell them the way I do. Anywho, because I've had this name that kind of stood apart, where if you're on a road trip, you go into the gas station, you don't see your name on a key. I think a lot of people can relate. Is it just sort of made me feel like, oh, I stand apart. It's just the way it is. So I like words and names like Backstage Capital and um, Interlude Magazine, which what I used to have, and Runner and Yacht Water and all these different words and names. And I think the most important thing that'll help your audience is to know that even though you see me, if you've known me for a while or if you're just learning about me today, even though you'll see all these brands and companies that I own, launched, co-founded, etc. What I did was I worked on Backstage Capital for a decade, and that's all I did all day long, 7 days a week, every waking hour was work on this one brand. So it was the brand of me, but it was Backstage, Backstage, Backstage. And then once I established it, not to say that we, had incredible success yet, but we will. Uh, I know more than everybody else does when I know what's going on behind the scenes, so I'll just wait, and I'll wait. B because I established that foundation, that's when I felt comfortable, like, moving to something else, and, I'm an entrepreneur first, so I felt like I I was very proud of what I established and the foundation that I set and all of the seeds planted. And now, December 2024, I made the announcement in Inc. magazine, that I was stepping back from day-to-day management. So now a team manages it. One of your HBS, friends, Brittany Davis, she manages it along with Kelly O'Connell, and, I just bring an opportunity, and I'm the largest stakeholder.
So when you build this platform, you have to kind of choose where you're going to spend your energy. As you mentioned, you have inbound coming all the time, right? But you have what I would consider to be an eclectic portfolio of endeavors, of ventures, right? All of
Mhm.
them exciting in their own way.
Yeah.
What is the through line? How do you decide and curate kind of what's next for you? What's the method to the madness?
Do you mean the companies that I own or
So
or
like a water
invest?
brand, and then, now you have a basketball league. All these things individually are very exciting, but how do you think about what you're gonna put your name on, what you're gonna focus your energy on? What is the through line, the philosophy you got?
Yeah, so the way to think about this is not so much of, "Oh, you have all these things," is how many things did I say no to?
Mm.
Hundreds and hundreds of real viable opportunities. And So I spend a lot of time thinking through my own pain point and the pain points and the pain points of people around me and entrepreneurs and customers that are in the thousands and the hundreds and, that I get to observe. So and then I also, like, really wanna do things that are impactful and fun. That's pretty simple. So with Yacht Water, um, that kinda came from a tweet where a friend of mine, an investor friend, was saying, they were asking for their founder, "What do you do when an investor says they're gonna invest 100,000 and then they ghost you? And then they come back when you're doing well?" And my response on Twitter randomly in 2021 was, "You splash them with your yacht water," right? Like, you just pass them on by in your yacht. And everybody loved it, got all these likes and stuff, and people were talking about it. And that just haunted me for like 3.5 or 2.5 years, and I finally said, "I want that." And then what I said was, "I don't just want a water brand, that doesn't interest me. What if we had a water brand that was co-owned by, more than 1,000 people?" So now we have 700 retail investors from Reg CF. We also have, I'm from Jackson, Mississippi, and their water is, as bad as Flint. And
Mm,
so I have been having behind the scenes discussions with their government, with their team, like, infrastructure teams. Um, that's a whole 'nother story, by the way. It's really, really scary stuff. But I thought about what could I do there, and I started working with someone who works with Matt Damon and his water, initiative. And so there's all kinds of impact there. I'm also sober now for almost 9 years, like 8.5 years. And so I wanted to give alternatives to people. So, like, I think through, like, what is the impact here? And what is also in alignment with what I wanna do, and I also wanna have fun, and I think it would be fun to walk into a room or walk into a stadium or walk into a concert, and the cans we have 3 different brands under the Yacht Water Global, um, conglomerate now. Very indie. But it's how fun would that be to walk into a place and people are holding that? So that's why, and then women's sports, I mean, come on. I've just like, I don't know how you don't wanna be in that lane, and I've talked to every WNBA, um, team there is over the past 4 years, and there's a lot of politics, and now we're seeing it play out, but
mm.
I always like, behind the scenes, I saw all this, like, "Oh my god, there's so much going on, I don't know if I wanna just be an investor in one team or something like that." So I was like, "Well, what can I look for that is different?" And an opportunity came to me, and, they were building from the ground up, and I decided to be part of it. So I just think that it's all about, like, staying aligned, staying focused, not going to every shiny object, because like I said, like, for every one of these, I can tell you 100 that were offered,
Right.
and I said no.
So, what is Arlan Hamilton's goal setting process? So, I know, for example, you've launched, so we should talk about this as well. Your first million, which out the box, huge arena, right? Kind of the who's who on stage,
The
um,
live event.
the live
'Cause my
event.
book is called Your First Million, and there's
Right.
Your
I'm
First
talking
Million
about
Live.
the
Yeah.
live event. And again, going back to kind of these really ambitious goals, this would have intimidated a lot of people because it's a capital intensive exercise. A lot of ways you're mobilizing your base that you built with your book, probably more than ever before to show up, etc. How do you set goals? Like what is your goal setting process? Do you set goals? How do you think about achievement and what you're looking to do? And so we talked about what you say no to, but what are the kind of visions that you have for 5 years, 10 years, 1 year, if at all?
For the Your First Million Live?
No, just
Or
in
just
general,
in
because that
general?
is the output
Yeah,
of
I don't know if I set goals. Like, I don't do, like vision board type things. I will say this, I have an exercise that I introduced in my first book, It's About Damn Time, where I talk about writing your own headline, and it's in the same lane as vision boards and The Secret and all that, which is, what do you want to be said about you in 5 years? What do you want the truth to be, the headline to be? And I use that as a North Star all the time, still. And I used that early on when the toughest times, raising Backstage, the toughest times. So, like with Your First Million Live, I looked at it and said, I have all these people, I have so many entrepreneurs and so many investors. I want to get them in the same room together. I know so many people who are millionaires and so many people who are just starting their careers and their journeys as an entrepreneur. I wanna get them in the same room together. So the tagline is, "Where current and future millionaires convene." And that's where it just really started. It was like a germ of an idea. I did envision the stage. I said, "I wonder if I could get TLC to put on a arena level concert at this thing the first year." And then next thing you know, I'm watching TLC put on an arena level concert at
Right.
Your First Million Live. And it's just kind of like I don't look at things as like, "Oh, that's crazy," or "I can't do that." I never think that. I just think, "I don't have the money for that. Where do I go and get it? How do I earn it? What partnerships do I create? And first and foremost, what impact is it going to have? Is it gonna be like this vanity party? I don't need to put on a major wedding. Like, I don't need to do that. My own wedding wasn't that, so why would I do that? No, actually, if you can get 2,000 people in a room, there's an unlimited amount almost of opportunity that will be created, and that's exactly what happened. So
Love it.
I just if I want something to exist in the world and it doesn't already exist, I set myself to the task of creating it.
And so for the audience, and please don't take offense by this parallel, but I have to say this because I see the parallel,
Ooh.
is when you combine for the audience a very strong vision. In this case, I want to see TLC, doing this thing, and you made it, visualizing this thing, like a really clear vision, a supreme level of confidence, and then ultimately the superpower of willing to take public L's. It reminds me of Kanye before you went left, right? Where
Well,
he
he
is
went right. Let's talk about where he really went.
right, exactly. So,
Kanye. Okay. I thought you were
so he
gonna say
inspired a lot
Elon
of
Musk, and
people.
I was gonna be
Yeah.
more offended, but yeah, Kanye,
Well, yeah, exactly.
okay. I
And the
haven't
reason I'm
been
saying that is
had
because
that before.
I think all those things are individually hard to do. A lot of people struggle to have a vision of where they want to go. A lot of people struggle on having supreme confidence. The biggest struggle probably is willing to take public L's, particularly if you have already been perceived as successful already in your life, because now
Yeah.
your identity is
I
in.
th I think the only pushback I'll have there is I think that Kanye is a megalomaniac. So I think he is, uh, an egomaniac.
For sure.
So a lot of moves I make could seem like that. I can imagine, but if you saw the work that was put into it and all the people that are put on by them, that to my detriment, like constantly to my detriment, I don't relate to that. But I understand the creativity side of it for sure, and like the envisioning a world that doesn't exist, kind of Mad Max, like not Mad Max, but envisioning a world that does not already exist and putting a little bit of that artistry to it. I thought you were gonna say Elon Musk, and that I would have been offended.
So let's get a little bit into the sausage making and um, Kanye, for example, he's known for when he did 808 and Heartbreaks, flying people to Hawaii, having a certain studio experience. He's regimented. We're doing this at 8. We're going to the gym. We're doing this. We're doing that. I'm curious to kind of get under the sausage making. And we were introduced to a mutual connection, Mel. Shout out Mel, who you've worked with on some of your ventures. Help us understand, one, you're super prolific on social media, right? You're very active. You're writing a lot. You're putting stuff out there a lot. You have all these ventures happening simultaneously, and then you're doing a bunch of planning for whatever's coming next. Give us some insight into how you organize. What are the systems? How does this all work kind of underneath the surface?
Wish I could give you some really interesting answer, but I don't have one. I wake up, I always have something to do. I always decide, what am I, like, inspired to do today? And then I do it. And I've had large teams before, and I've gone through all kinds of layoffs and all kinds of ups and downs financially, and I've had really lean teams. And, I think when you find somebody like Melanie Jones, who we both know who connected us, who is right now training, executive assistants because she's so good at what she does. I'm sorry, she's training chiefs of staff because she started as my executive assistant and then she became my chief of staff. When you have 1 or 2, like, forget A players, but just like X play, like you can't even describe them. That's super helpful because 'cause they're playing at your level and they're running with you. And then I really like now at 45, after all I've done and all the kind of seeds planted just waiting for the harvest, I really like calm and
Mhm.
simple. So I do a lot of the stuff myself. Like I mean, when I go back to my email, I'll probably have 20 emails that I need to respond to that are like $10 customer service messages, and, I upload everything on YouTube, and I just when it kind of inspires me to do it, and because I love it, and I think that having, like, I do have editors, so that's helpful, but I usually just upload. Like, today I'll put something up, and it's just me talking for 28 minutes, and I'm just gonna upload it. I think that the closer you can be to the process of the content creation, the better. Now, I gained 150,000 YouTube subscribers in, I think, 18 months or something. I think that's what it was, yeah. And when that started to take off, it wasn't when I was in the studio, when I flew across the country to meet up with producers. It wasn't any of that. It was when I opened up my laptop, just like I am here, got on Zoom or whatever I use, QuickTime, whatever you have, and pressed record and came with the quality of the content. And I taught somebody, and every video has to have a purpose. So when I go on YouTube, I'm not just going to do fluff. I'm only going to upload if I have a purpose. So I record. When I started doing that, I started having like 300, 400, 500 people subscribing a day, and then it just grew from there. Same thing with Instagram. So there's certain tools. I think AI is, like, incredible, to say the least, and there's certain tools that can help you, but I just don't have a system. I wish I could tell you I did.
Well, I guess your system is consistency because that's one thing that's been
Yeah,
been
all
true.
day, all day.
I want
There's
to get
I
back.
mean,
Good.
let me say this, like, I'm on school, School. I'm on school. I started August 4th, 2024, and I have not missed one day since. And you can see that on your profile, you see it with green dots. Mine is solid. It's very rare, solid.
What's the secret, in your opinion? And it's probably not a secret, but what is your secret to remaining consistent?
I only do what I want to do. So if I want to do it, then I enjoy it, then I keep doing it. So a lot of times people are looking for what can make me money or what's the niche I need to be in that's going to make the most money the fastest. And so they start making content for that thing and they start putting together lead magnets and PDFs and AI tools. And then they're like 3 months in and like, I don't really enjoy this. So of course they drop off because why would you keep going? So you either make your hobby your main thing, and then you're just set. Like, if I could make a living, which I say if, I could make a living from my loving watching General Hospital. If I wanted to, I could just create an entire YouTube channel, an Instagram channel, a school, and I could just be off to the races podcasting about it. So you either make your hobby your main thing, and then you're kind of gonna be consistent. Don't let anybody tell you it's too childish or foolish or whatever. Just do it. People are making bank on Pokemon and all that. Do it. Or you tap into your lab framework, which is your what have you learned from, what have you then applied to your life, and then what have you benefited from or someone else has benefited from it. And if you can find that and then you align that in the Venn diagram of I also enjoy it, then you have a foundation of something real. Instead of like going to ChatGPT and saying, what are the top 10 industries or the top 10 niches that I should start my YouTube channel on? That rarely works out.
And so, assuming you apply the lab approach when you determine what is valuable. So, when you're consistently coming to YouTube, you're doing videos, you're using that lab format to say, here's what I'm going to talk about. How much work goes into scripting versus freestyling? Are people overthinking sometimes? Just turn the mic on and get better
Yeah.
over time?
It all depends on what you're doing. So some people are gonna be doing straight up entertainment stuff, and that's really viable. Like, my brother runs Real Life Street Stars, so he runs the blue couch, the light wall that you see a lot of, it's been repurposed, like, billions of times, and these interviews that are scandalous.
Mm.
And so he's gonna have a different kind of vibe than I'm gonna have. But when it comes to education, even if it's not about teaching other entrepreneurs how to make money, whatever your lane is, if you're teaching, my suggestion is right in the middle. Not to script, it looks too fake, and it's not landing with people. People have all these options. They can go to masterclass if they need to watch that. And it's also not winging it to the point where you're just getting on there wasting people's time, you're just him-hawing, you're taking forever to get to the point or even start. Please don't have a theme song if you are not Oprah Winfrey. Please, we don't need that on your YouTube videos. Give that to your family in a Vimeo. Instead, right in the middle, bullet point outline. Plan your video. What is this video gonna be about? What is gonna be the takeaway? Why am I doing this video? What am I going to teach somebody or help somebody with? Or if I'm not a teacher, what am I learning that I can just share my learning experience? Bullet point it, have it somewhere in front of you. I always put like a little page, you can on your MacBook, a little page, have some information there, bullet points, and then go. Now, you're not gonna be perfect at this out the gate or great at this, but that's why you need to put up 10, 20, 50 videos. Not so that you can start making money immediately and like, oh, that's how it happens, go viral. It's so that you get the reps in. You build your chops. You learn from every video and you get a little bit better. But that's what I would do. I don't script. Like, I think there was like a month where I was experimenting with scripting and I just am so robotic that it
Mm.
doesn't work.
Can you tell us a little bit around, there's multiple platforms. It could be overwhelming for folks, right? Some people would say stick to one platform. Other folks would say have a tree trunk and have branches. And
Mhm.
how do you deal with that? Because you seem to be pretty prolific on blogs, on social, and on YouTube at the same time.
If I had to choose just one to go all in on and I was not allowed to go anywhere else when it comes to content, it would be YouTube. YouTube has depth and analytics and algorithm that you cannot compare to any other place. Like, I think the closest you can get to is what Meta does with their ads. That's how granular and precise YouTube algorithm is. So what YouTube is doing is trying to put your is trying to make the viewing experience for the viewer as great as possible, as accurate as possible. So next time, go to your homepage on Zoom. I'm sorry, your homepage. Go to your homepage on YouTube. Look at your homepage. Look at what it's feeding you. It's pretty good. So when you put up a video, it takes the transcript and it says, okay, this video is about this thing. I'm going to put it in front of these people and see if they like it. Now, you can have the best video content in the world. You could be teaching something like that should be paid for. But if your packaging is bad, no one's ever going to click on it. And if they don't click, they don't watch it. So you need to have your thumbnail, that picture that's on your YouTube. The thumbnail needs to be clear. There's multiple things about that, but you can even look it up on YouTube. How do I have a great thumbnail? You need to have your title that needs to be a specific way, and then your hook, the first thing that you say. So the concept is part of the packaging. What is this video about? What's the point? The thumbnail and the title will get people to click, and then the hook, the first few words you say that reinforce the thumbnail and the title will get people to stay because it's the payoff. And the longer you can keep people watching, the more that tells YouTube, oh, I like them. They want people on their site so they can sell ads. They can place ads. So the more you can keep somebody on YouTube for them, the more they like you and they put you in front of people. So all you need to do is have the right content and YouTube will help you find the right audience.
Got it. What tools, especially with AI now, are you using? What's your go-to stack?
ChatGPT all day long.
What
A
do you use
little
it
bit
what do you use it for specifically?
Everything. I use ChatGPT every day. I use it to help me brainstorm, to organize, to go granular. Like, one thing you can do is, like, if you're trying to figure out what to offer, what product to have, think about what your overall niche is gonna be, kind of lane you're gonna be in. Say, "What are the 10 steps to doing this?" Like, I wanna be a painter. What are the 10 steps to becoming a painter? It gives you the 10 steps. Go to the first step. Say, "What are the 10 steps of the first step?" When it lists that, you have your first 10 videos that you can put on YouTube, or your first 5 lead magnets, or your first name of your product. Okay, you can go more and more granular. Now, you may decide, I don't want to talk to beginners. I want to talk to people who have reached a certain point and they're over here. And that's where you can play with it. So I do it with that. I do it to create prompts.
Self.
Yes. Well, it's lovable. It's an AI agent.
No, I mean, you are in Lovable yourself doing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, they did the 2025 lovable wrap for the end of year. I'm in the top 1% of users because I use it so often, and also in the top 1% of viewers of my pages because I promote it with YouTube. So
Mm,
everything I've said today, I do. That's
right.
why I want everybody to do it. It's not difficult, right? It's just like you go into Lovable, ChatGPT, you ask it, "Hey, give me a prompt to put into Lovable that will give me the best landing page for this, the sales page, the best copy, da 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 da." It'll give it to you, go to Lovable, plug it in, and it'll just give you 80% of a page, and then you just work with it.
Mm.
And then you can just, this would have taken weeks or months, and yes, like, there are some people who are out of work because of this, because you're able to do it yourself, but if you are someone yourself who is a web designer or someone like that, this makes you Iron Man.
Mm. So ChatGPT and Lovable are your go-to AI tools. I know you have a flight to catch, so I'm going to leave you with one last question. 1,000 plus folks are watching this. This is called the Owner Mode Summit because there's folks who are maybe in high-paying jobs, in W-2s. This idea of security is fleeting because of AI, because of geopolitical activity, you name it. But folks are now at a point where they're saying, I need to understand what I'm going to do. You specifically have built You've been really successful in building a brand that's been able to provide flexibility and options for you to live the life you want to live and make a good living while you're doing it. A lot of folks here maybe haven't built their social media presence. Maybe they're starting from scratch. Can you just speak to why it's so important to get started and what would be kind of in your opinion, the urgency of getting started sooner rather than later?
Ooh, I mean, they said recently there was a report that said I think they said it was like every 12 weeks now, the tech stack completely changes on AI, and that's only going to accelerate. So it's not about, like, knowing everything that's going on in AI because 'cause we'll never catch up. The people who are the most advanced people don't know everything that's going on in AI because 'cause it'll always be changing. But if you don't get into the arena to understand the overall concepts, what is an LLM? What is ChatGPT, a large language model? What is an AI agent like Lovable? What does that mean that they get together and they do stuff for you? If you don't get those concepts and just learn a few simple things, then everything is gonna feel so foreign to you that you will feel completely left out, and this is finally the meritocracy that Silicon Valley has been talking about for decades. It's
Mm.
finally based on anybody in the world can have the same access to the same tools and the same information and learn it, and when we're in a meritocracy, I know this for myself and I know this for the people I work with, Black people, brown people, women, LGBTQ+, etc. When we are in a meritocracy situation, we tend to overperform because when you put us on level playing field, we're really good
Mm.
by and large. This is the moment for you to get on that level playing field so that you can outpace everybody. And then you can have options. So it's not about like, oh, I got to make millions, even though my book is your first million. It could be, what if I just replace my salary by putting up a lovable page that makes money while I sleep, or starting a school, SKOOL, that has 100 people in it and gives me an extra couple $1,000s a year because of different methods.
Arlan is the real deal. She lives it, right? A lot of people talk about it. I think that's a big difference with the folks that you see out there. Who's done it? Who's talking about it? And with that, I know you got to catch this flight, Arlan. Thank you
I
so much for dropping these gems, creating some urgency, and showing some forward thinkingness. Congrats on all your success. Consider us friends here. Audience, give her a virtual round of applause for Arlan. And with that, we will let you go. Thank you so much, Arlan. Really appreciate
Thank
you.
you, Brandon. Amazing. Did an
All right.
amazing job.
Take care.